Thank you so much, firstly, for everyone who's joined today. This is our very first London meetup. We've been doing a lot of meetups in Lisbon, but because Gnosis Pay is kind of based in London, we thought, why not London? And one of our major kind of, before we go in, let me introduce myself. I'm Deep, and I lead like the marketing and partnerships at Gnosis Pay. I'm slowly starting to become a payments nerd, but in my previous life, I worked with a bunch of early-stage startups in Web3, Web2, in business roles. We're super excited to have you guys here. And why are we doing this meetup? We essentially want to create this recurring platform to bring TradFi, traditional finance, DeFi in the same room to discuss solutions. For far too long, there's been this gap where both the worlds are not kind of interacting, and we want to change that. And first up, before we kind of start with the session, I want to just kind of thank the team. A shout out to Carolina. Carolina, can I have a show of hands? Carolina is here. Thank you so much. And Chantel as well from the team. Chantel, can you raise your hand? Oh, she can't. She's filming for me. But, and also like a shout out to the Gnosis Pay and the Gnosis team. Can we have a show of hands, guys? Thank you so much for building this amazing product. Just giving you a brief overview of the agenda. We have our first keynote by Marcos, who's the CEO of Gnosis Pay. Then he'll be speaking a lot about payments, the future of payments, and how we are trying to solve some of the problems. Then we have a cool fireside chat with the Visa crypto team. We have Mattia from Visa speaking. And then we have a panel of cool founders and amazing folks who are building wallets and payments apps in Web3. And then to end with, we'll have a fireside chat with Stani. But without further ado, let me start with the first keynote. Marcos, co-founder and CEO of Gnosis Pay. In his previous life, like before Web3, Marcos was the CEO of one of the fastest growing fintechs in Europe, which is called SaltPay formerly, and now Tea. Marcos has spent like decades of his life working in every like part of payments, and I'll let the man himself speak now. Marcos.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. Don't believe half of that Deep said, but what matters is that we're here to talk about something that I am truly passionate about, and it touches all of your lives, your parents' lives, your friends' lives, because at the end of the day, the rails been created by blockchain. Actually, well, one of the use cases is definitely payments. So let me dive into it. So we're on the cusp of a revolution in payments, right? I hear this a lot in fintech. They talk a lot about this. And maybe let me explain a little bit about how this works and why that's the case. So if you look at back in the 50s, there was this group of friends. They were regulars in restaurants in New York. It was always extremely, well, weird in the end of the dinner because they had to split the bill. So they created something called the diner's card, which was essentially a group of people going to the same place where the owner of the restaurant knew already. You show the card, and then suddenly they can walk away, and then in a moment, they would be paying individually for all the transactions they did in that month, in that week, in whatever period of time. So what happened at that moment was something that we call the IAA, identification, authentication, and authorization, right? So I identify myself, hi, I'm Marcos. Well, authenticate yourself. Here's my card and perhaps my driver license. And then I authorize you to walk away and pay later. That concept was very much evolved to things that we have seen, and a lot of you have seen in this room, from just the plastic to mag stripes. Even though they started very late, like very early days, you can see a lot of those things still playing a role these days, all the way to chip and pin. And again, you can always think about it as IAA, Max Stripe, identify, terminal, authenticate, signature, passport, ID, whatever, and then authorize, you do have the funds to basically walk away. Chip and PIN, card talks to terminal, identify, authenticate, 1, 2, 3, 4, walk away, payment is done. And then it evolves all the way to the period where we go inside of a car, you have no idea if that driver is a driver, you do the thing that your mom's probably told you not to do, drink the water, take a candy from someone, some stranger, and then you go to a place, and suddenly the funds are transferred out of you to that person because there's trust that this person is going to be paid for the service that he provided to you. Amazing. This is really crazy good evolution. But what happened to the back end? And since I have Visa folks here in the room, I have to be a bit more gentle than I normally am. But these guys back in the 70s, precisely 73, were created. And then 77, another standard was created called SWIFT. And something in Visa called Base 1, Base 2, which is the clearing, authorization, and settlement protocol or rules, was also created at that time. And the name is Base 1, Base 2, because Visa was originally inside of Bank of America. But funny enough, that Base 1, Base 2, which is Bank of America's systems engineering, it still lives today. So if you want to do business with Visa right there, they're going to say, well, you're welcome, and they're going to do a bunch of very good terms for you guys to join them because they're pretty cool. But at the end of the day, they're going to give you a 1973 logic created for mainframe systems using COBOL language. And why that matters? Because that Bank of America role to help funds go from you, holder, all the way to the merchant, was pretty much withdraw cash, go to those two places. Then suddenly came someone here in between saying, no, you don't have to withdraw cash anymore. Just take this card, go to that place, identify yourself, authenticate yourself, and then we'll pay later. So these guys do not have to transact at that point. And then this been pushed even further between the two parties to ensure, you know, more technology, more complexities. The phone came, the big Motorola's came, and all of that kept evolving in the front end. And in the back end, for many reasons, couldn't evolve. Or basically, you always have to go back and connect to that old-fashioned COBOL and mainframe system. Well, then, of course, it generates a bunch of problems which we believe that needs to be resolved, and it should be resolved. But then again, imagine all these payment organizations, they're super afraid. There is even some funny term, if ain't broken, don't touch. That's very common in payments. That keeps adding cost to the transaction. But if it keeps adding cost to the transaction, it adds cost to us, cardholders. Because the merchant, even though he was going to have that 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever that is, he will always increase his price and then bring it back to us, cardholders, to pay. So some people solved this before in another industry, the telco industry or the mobile industry. If you guys remember, there was something back in the days created voice over IP, but nobody talked about it, which was Skype. I'm from Brazil. My parents were calling me in the Skype out number, which is a landline number in Brazil. I had a Palm phone that I download Skype, and then I got my Skype in call, and then I talked to my parents, which is these days is WhatsApp call or your regular phone call. So every phone call today is voice over IP. We don't talk about Skype anymore. In the way we see the world, that's exactly what we want to be. We want to make sure that we can connect all this complexity of the old-fashioned industry, give them the ways to operate in the new rails without having to take risk. Let them mature at the time that they want to mature. But let's also give access to those that are trying to, well, do more with the existing technology, access the other way around, creating a much more democratized access to card holders. So let's put competition in this game in a way that, well, we could help everyone. So what does that mean? A regular debit card gets a regular KYC. I mean, this is the only way today for you to identify someone and see that this person is real. Remember, IAA. I need to make sure that that person exists and that's not connected to illegal activities, criminal activities, criminal money, whatever. So we've done that, perfect. Then you can actually store value created by our, well, friends, very close friends, safe, right? That is, to me, in the Homer Simpson world, checkings account, right? That can be a savings account, investment account, whatever that is. So now I have a card that is validated, and it's given a checkings account. Off-ramp solved. Then you have to think about the on-ramp. Well, then you have an IBAN address. And then you also have the digital money. Okay. Now, the card is produced, typical producer of card. Then you basically have, well, the users getting their EROEs and then stored in that checkings account. Every time funds are transferred, again, we need to keep the legitimacy of money going into the real world because there are rules in different countries that we have to respect. So we have the means to understand the source of funds and its origins. And then you can pay. For a lot of people, this is probably a lot of steps. This is simplifying a bunch of complexity to basically say, you are now a bank. Any person that holds a Gnosis Pay card becomes its own bank with an IBAN address connected to that card and an account connected to that card, a checkings account based on a blockchain address that can perform transactions in any point of sale authorized by Visa, anywhere in the globe, respecting all rules of every regulator in 200 plus countries, whatever amount of countries out there. In a bit more simplified view, we're talking as Gnosis Pay is then a card. No. It's a checkings account. No. We're like the bridge of three different worlds and the orchestrator of different rules, providers, to ensure that we can bring transactions on chain. And we can create those rails to any financial institution and user out there. If a bank wants to issue the Gnosis card now, they can. This card can be connected to the bank ledger and remove funds from a regular debit bank account, with the optionality from the bank, as he is the one in custodial of the funds, to use blockchain as the means to replace SWIFT, as the means to provide multi-currency accounts. with USDCs and the EUROEs and GGBPs and whatever multi-currency. As much as a regular user can then have access to this. And by implementing these bridges and by orchestrating these providers and connecting to local clearing homes of different given countries, we're basically allowing the world to migrate gently on-chain, making a new SWIFT, reducing on average 499 basis points in a transaction for 96% of all banks out there, volume, to cents, not even base points. And then letting the world decide what they do with that. Again, we're infrastructure. So, it only works if we would take the first ride, because we tried initially, hey bank, can you please issue this, it's gonna be amazing. Well, it didn't work. And then we said, hey, providers of cards, you wanna do that? It didn't work. So we said, let's then create the first B2C card and actually show to everyone that this works. But the story shouldn't stop here. We have our tribe, we have the Gnosis community that often back us up and help us scale very cool stuff. But in fact, everyone likes their own stuff, their own music, their own places to go. So if you have your MetaMask, if you have your Coinbase wallet, whatever you have, it should be your story with them, and they just have a card to basically transact or give it the card to you. So they will have their own designs, they will have their own way to communicate with their teams, to their tribes, and that's what we're enabling. We are operating today in Europe, UK, Switzerland, so anyone resident of one of those areas, you're allowed to have one of our cards, and we are very soon going to this list. Mattia promised me that we're going to be everywhere by the end of this year. Is this recorded? Please, Mattia, say yes. We ask this question whenever he's here presenting. But that's basically the story from Gnosis Pay. So thanks to our partners. So just to make that the first card, we had a bunch of parties connected with us. And yeah, if you don't have your card, order your card, play around, give us feedback. But that's Gnosis Pay. Thank you.